Welcome back. You'll see that I'm joined on stage by a panel, because this is a panel. This is the future of the industry, where we're going to be looking broadly at the future of video game composition and sound design from an industry perspective. It's a bit of an opportunity to learn about various industry bodies that exist in Australia, because I know that one of the beautiful things that I love so much about games is that it's aggressively DIY. We're all here just excited to make stuff and diving in. And I absolutely love that. But it's also okay to ask for help. And it's also important to understand what help is available and how these industry bodies work. Who knows what an industry body is? That's what I like to see. Very few hands up, because honestly, I'm going to be so for real. It's something that I still find kind of confusing, because it's also something that I think you need to interact with on an ongoing basis to really understand. But at the same time, incredible resources and really great opportunities and things like that for you to further your career in the way that you want to. So that's why we do panels like this, to bridge that gap for you. So joining me up on stage, I have... I'm just getting it in order. Pasha Ostovar.
Hello.
Who is from APRA AMCOS. He's the Screen and Games Manager. We have James Ashton, who is from the Australian Screen Sound Guild, and Dimitri Golovko, who is from the Australian Guild of Screen Composers. Now, those are all very fancy organization names, but can you please explain to me what each of them actually does? I'll start with you, Pash.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, there we go. Hi, I'm Pasha Ostovar from APRA AMCOS. APRA AMCOS are a music rights organisation. We have roughly or over 124,000 members who are all rights holders. They are composers and songwriters and publishers of music. And we license bodies that use music. They either copy it or they perform it and pay royalties to our members.
I'm going to make you go again, but explain like I'm 5. What's rights? What's memberships? Licensing?
Okay. So we largely represent the copyright in music itself for creators. So if you have written a song or a piece of music, we also represent those rights for publishers who have signed that copyright. It is separate and distinct from any sound recording copyright that can be found within a sound recording, or we sometimes call that master rights. So there's APRA, who manage the performing rights for our members. Performing rights are for the public performance of music, gigs, festivals, things like that, and then also radio and TV broadcast, but also any digital communication, any streaming platforms. AMCOS is the body that largely represents the reproduction rights within the copyright. That we used to call that the mechanical rights. It's an old term. We prefer to use reproduction rights now. And that includes any physical copies of music, so any kind of physical product like CDs, vinyl, but also downloads. And also there's some streaming element as well, but there's it also can include what we call the synchronization of music. And for anyone who doesn't know, synchronization is when you pair music with audio-visual media, such as television productions or films or games or any interactive media.
So basically, anytime a piece of music gets played in Australia, someone must pay. And that is royalties that gets, correct me if I'm wrong, that gets collected by APRA, and then they pay it out to the composers, performers.
That's right. Yeah. We license the users of music. That includes broadcasters, it includes digital platforms on the APRA side. We collect license fees, and then we process them and then distribute royalties to our members based on the amount of usage that their music is having within Australia and New Zealand, but we also have reciprocal agreements with the other PROs, performing rights organisations in the world, who collect on our behalf through our affiliate agreement. So let's say you've written a song, it's been released, it's blowing up in the US. We would have one of the US societies, largely it's either ASCAP or BMI, collect our rights on our behalf, send it through to us, and then we would pay our member from Australia.
So what we're hearing is that APRA AMCOS helps us get money, and we will have many questions for you later, Pash. Thank you. James, could you please explain what the Australian Screen Sound Guild is?
I'll do my very best. The Australian Screen Sound Guild is a body that represents people who make a living or aim to make a living from putting sound to a moving image on a screen. Traditionally, that's been film and television. I myself work mostly in film, feature film, but broadly speaking, you know, the terms of our body are that any sound that gets put to a moving image on a screen is encompassed in what our guild does, and our guild looks to support members, to encourage members, to celebrate members' successes. I think it would be fair to say that the most significant event that we hold each year is our awards ceremony, where we judge and then celebrate outstanding achievements across all of the categories that we currently have represented by our membership. Unfortunately, we don't really have any people from the game industry currently part of our.
I have a question about that later. We'll go.
Okay, so I guess I'm here to sort of let you guys know that we'd love you to be a part of our guild, and so that you can, you know, come and be supported by people who work in a similar field but not the same field. You know, integrate, ask questions, celebrate, and you know, get amongst it.
Dimitri, Australian Guild of Screen Composers.
Yes. Well, we are similar to the Sound Guild in that we represent screen composers specifically. This is games is part of screen music, I would say. We have been trying to get a little bit more involved, and I'm head of a subcommittee on the guild, which is specifically for games, so that we can create things like events, represent composers a lot more in terms of lobbying government, and things like contract templates. We have all sorts of resources on our website. At the moment, we're running a games rate survey. That's very important, and I'm hoping that a bunch of people will be able to go to our website to fill out this survey, because we would like to gather some data when it comes to rates in this industry. It's something that we are somewhat clear on when it comes to film and TV, but a little bit less clear on in games, because we just don't have as many members.
And we will get to that later as well. I want to ask that, how would you describe an industry body? What is an industry body? What is a guild? If you were to join one, why? What is your purpose? Why do you exist? Justify your existence to me.
Well, our guild is made up of, first of all, primarily volunteers. So I'm a working screen composer, and we all volunteer our time. And the whole point really of a guild is to, I believe, to prop each other up and to help each other and to have resources that we can share amongst ourselves to be able to make it a stronger, more vibrant industry for everyone. Our guild runs things like events. We coordinate with APRA on several different things. And as an example, we, through the Games Committee and through APRA, we coordinated together to for the Screen Music Awards to create a new award, which we hadn't had before, which APRA hadn't had before, for games music. This doesn't seem like a big deal, probably, but it is actually, I think, a big deal. And maybe Pash could talk about this, because I think it's huge to be able to represent games music in that way.
I think it's a really legitimizing thing to have awards. And I know that sometimes, look, I feel like awards are one of those things where I don't care if I don't win one, but if I win one, they're very important, you know? but having that recognition, and James, you spoke about the awards that ASSG runs as well. I think having those kinds of events is very encouraging, and it is also an opportunity for people to even just put on their work that they, are an award winner, and that can help bolster them. So in essence, what I'm getting is that guilds are essentially like clubs that people can join that are a space where people can learn from each other and have an ongoing connection to the industry that they're working in, encourage each other, and also have opportunities that help boost their careers in these little ways, whether it be winning an award or being eligible to win an award, or other resources, learning from each other, so on and so forth.
Well, one thing I can say, for example, is say this survey that we're doing now. We have an existing rates card for film and TV on our website for members.
What's a rates card?
So I'm going to get into that. So a rates card that we have is essentially, it's like a suggestion, or like it's a way for members to see what kind of rates people are charging in the industry, and it's very varied, because not all contracts are different. Every job is different, but it at least gives you a floor sometimes, and it gives people negotiating power when it comes to negotiating their rights and their rates. And I think it would be very great to have a similar thing in games. And so that's something that the survey is kind of aiming to do. And one of the cool things about the rate card is that it has been used with Screen Australia for funding. For example, Screen Australia might fund a TV show or a film and they will use this rate card for composers as a way to kind of, not to tell them what to charge when it comes to productions, but they might use it as a way to incentivize them to hire Australian composers and charge these specific kind of rates.
Is it basically like an unofficial award rate? Like it helps shape?
It helps shape the industry, and kind of, I think it helps people also be more confident when it comes to negotiating their rates.
So the game audio rate survey is up on the website. You can go have a look. You can actually also just click through it and not fill anything out, which is what I did because I wanted to have a look at it. I didn't hit submit at the end, but a cool thing about it is that it also gives pretty helpful descriptions of different ways of charging for your work, which I also think is very interesting because it can give you an idea of like actually what you could ask for.
That's right.
And I think sometimes the unknown is like our biggest enemy. When we don't know what you can ask for, you don't know what the done thing is, you just accept whatever's given to you. And you don't have to.
Yes.
Did you know that you can send back a contract that you've completely changed and say, this is the one I want to sign instead? That's a thing. You can do that to anyone. But I think that sometimes...
Doesn't mean they have to agree to it.
Doesn't mean they don't have to agree. Exactly. And you should tell them what you've changed. You shouldn't just do that and you hope they don't read it. But I think sometimes what you don't know is the biggest hurdle. So I highly encourage you to go have a look at that, even if it is just to read some of the different ways that people go about charging for their work or getting paid. It can be really useful to get your head around that.
And I think I'm going to assume too, because we have a similar issue in our industry, people naturally have a tendency to doubt their abilities and
undervalue themselves,
and then therefore undervalue themselves. So having an understanding about what's normal, in terms of what people charge for certain situations, as you said, can give you the confidence to say, actually, my work is worth this, and I'm going to stand and fight for it.
And it's not necessarily like, we're not telling people you have to charge this. This is like the norm necessarily, because norms also change. But it's about just seeing where people are at and then presenting that data to everyone else, all our members, and to be like, here's the range in which people are charging as well. We're not doing specific numbers on like, if it's this much, it's this much. It's more like, if it's this much, here's a range that you can charge that others have. Yeah.
And speaking of norms, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to get Pash to tell us how royalties work for music in Australia in general, because I think I won't get too much into it in this bit, but royalties is one of those difficult things where there's an established way of doing things in kind of all the rest of the music world, and then games came along and it was very different in a very new industry that did things in its own way. So first we're going to learn about how it's been done and what we can learn from that and where things are going with games. So Pash, how do royalties work in Australia for music in general, and what makes a piece of music eligible for earning royalties?
So I can speak to royalties for copyright, for music, which, as we said earlier, is broken into two main parts: your performing royalties and your mechanical or reproduction royalties. APRA and its members will register their musical works with us. And if they are signed to publishers, their publisher will register their works with us. We will then, through all the licenses that we procure in Australia and New Zealand, we will then match all the usage that we receive from those bodies that are using music, so the broadcasters, etc., will send us usage. We will match that against our database and all the copyright information on the works we have on file. We will process it all, and then we will distribute it out to our members. In terms of performing rights, if you are an unpublished writer, so if you are just operating on your own, you haven't signed a publishing deal, largely if you have a solo written work, you will receive 100% of that on the performing side. If you are published, the general rule of thumb is that publishers will collect 50% on your behalf, and then according to the terms of your deal with them, they will pass on whatever royalty you have agreed. But your writer share, the 50% of your writer share for performing royalties, is something that is always handled direct by APRA.
What do you mean?
So if you can imagine, the full copyright of a work is 100%. Does that make sense? Do we agree that, like...
I don't understand it, but did everyone else? Okay, it's just me. That's all right. That's fine. It's more about you guys. Wait, I'm going to explain back what I gathered, and you tell me if it makes sense. So there's 100% of the royalties if you are signed up to APRA yourself and collecting those royalties on your own behalf, you get 100% of that. But if you're signed with a publisher, which is essentially another body, company, something who's...
Let me roll it back a little bit.
Okay.
So we have writer members and publisher members.
Yep.
And our writer members who have assigned their work through publishing agreements to publishers will always collect, or usually always collect a share directly, which we call their writer share. And that is usually 50% for 100% written song, with the publisher collecting the other half, and then they will remunerate onto the writer according to the terms of their publishing agreement.
So is there any benefit to being with a publisher versus doing it yourself?
There can be. It depends on the sector you're working in, but largely when people become commercially successful, they will be offered publishing deals because your publisher will then handle all your administration for you, all your works registrations, and protect your copyright. Largely they may procure sync licenses for you as well.
So it's kind of like hiring an accountant where you could do it yourself, but it gets to a point where maybe there's too much going on and it's better to handle it someone else.
When you start to become commercially successful, that's when that door kind of opens up a little bit more. Sometimes publishing can get written into some agreements, commission agreements for AV commissions, but yeah, that's slightly different, but yeah.
Speaking of works that are eligible to collect royalties, can you get royalties for sound effects too? I know you can for music, but sound effects?
Do you want to take this one?
I can take this one, yeah. The short answer is no, you can't get royalties for sound effects. However, you can sell sounds that you create yourself. So I'm relatively confident that a few people here will be familiar with sound effects libraries that you can purchase. There are free ones as well, but it is possible to create a sound or a library of sound and then sell it in a marketplace essentially, and you would have a licensing agreement as part of the sale of that sound effect or package of sounds, where the sounds could be used in synchronized productions, a la TV shows and films, and so you won't get ongoing royalties every time that film is screened, but you would take a one-off payment for the sale of the sound effects that somebody else uses in their production.
How is that policed though? Because how is people going to know if someone's stolen a sound when it's all mixed in everywhere?
The short answer is it's not policed. There are some of the top tier sellers of sound effects put non-audible watermarks into their sound files that they can then
How does that work?
I don't know how it works.
Yeah, okay.
I just know that it works. It's like they put like an invisible fingerprint in the sound file, and then they can scan sounds from other places and see if their fingerprint shows up, and then they can go and check their paperwork and say, hey, who did this? Did they pay for what the fingerprint is? And if they didn't, then they can make a phone call. The reality, in my experience, my personal experience, is that I've never actually seen that happen in practice.
Yeah, fair enough. What are the rate ranges for composers and musicians, and where can we find that information? I think this speaks to the survey as well. How far along is the information collecting in that survey so far?
It's very early. We've just launched it. So it'll be available for people to fill out for about maybe another month and a little bit. So I highly encourage everybody to go to our website, agsc.org.au, to have a look at it. There's obviously the rates cards that's available for film and TV and documentaries, short films, things like that. For games, not yet. We're not sure yet. There have been some studies done before that looked into this sort of thing. I can only speak anecdotally, and I don't think that I wouldn't be comfortable speaking anecdotally at the moment. But yes, we're in the process of figuring that out, but just giving people a resource to have a look at that data, basically. Yeah.
And it's my understanding as well that it is a very difficult beast to wrestle with because of just the difference of games to begin with, but also the difference in the way that historically they've been developed and they've popped up, and the types of agreements that
Yes, agreements
have
vary
place,
a
yeah.
lot. Yeah, our survey is specifically targeting Australian games and Australian composers, but you will see all sorts of different kinds of contracts from different companies all over the world. Same with film and TV. It's all kind of depends on the region and the composers involved. Yes, you'll see all sorts of different things. And in games, people charge very differently. Some people charge per minute, some people charge per milestone, some people do profit share agreements. It varies a lot.
So what about royalties? Can you get royalties for games?
You can, but it really does depend on the scope of the agreement that Dimitri was just talking about. It depends on the scope of the agreement that you are agreeing to sign. So it's very important that when you are presented with a contract or an agreement for any work you're doing on an AV production game, that you understand what it includes and you understand what you're signing. And like you said before, you know, there should always be scope for a negotiation. You should always be able to take that contract away, get legal advice if you don't understand it, and figure out what is best for you in that moment of time or at that point in your career, and then make an informed decision about it, because the scope of the agreement and the rights it can include or not can have an effect on what you may or may not be able to collect in royalties down the line. So we often refer our members to Arts Law, who are they're a body that can offer low cost or free legal advice to creators. And yeah, that can be a very useful resource for anyone who is about to start making their music available commercially, and they're signing contracts, or they're getting into like an official agreement with a developer or publisher.
Is it possible to sign away your rights to royalties?
It is the Copyright Act can be changed by contract.
Okay.
Basically, so that is possible, but we we advise against it, particularly because for our members, when you become an APRA member, you have assigned your rights already for performing rights to APRA itself to administrate and manage on your behalf. That's not to say that we don't offer some flexibility within the membership to either license back or opt out, depending on the type of use and the particular situation that you're in. So we can always have conversations around it. We are largely trying to advocate and support all our members who are working in games. We want them to be able to enjoy working in that industry, and we want them to win the work that they want to do as well. And there are ways to do it where they can also retain much of their performing rights as well, so that if the music itself has a life outside of the game, we can continue to have that music in our licenses and collect any what we call residual performing royalties for any usage that may occur on other online platforms or radio or television, etc.
That's a really good point, which we'll come back to, but Dimitri had something you want to add?
I think Pash covered a lot of it, but yeah, I was just going to say that contracts are always all different, but there are things like work for hire contracts and buyouts, but a lot of that is much more common with international contracts when you're working for, in Australia, it's becoming more common in film and TV, but usually it's because there will be some kind of a deal that the production has made with an American partner or an international partner where they've already sold the music rights before they even hire a composer. But for these things, again, it's like you can negotiate, for example, a higher upfront fee when that happens. It doesn't mean you have to necessarily lose the gig. And this is kind of where we want to try and see what are the norms that people are charging when it comes to these kinds of different deals with this rate survey. So yes, you can sign away your rights.
I think that's a really great point as well, that sometimes knowing what the norm is what allows you to shift the norm, and it is really hard to be the one that steps out and says, hey, I don't think that's fair. I think that I should be paid more. If you're the only one doing it, it's very easy for the studio company, whatever, to be like, no, I can get someone else. But if everyone agrees that doesn't make sense, it's not fair, then it's a lot easier. which is maybe just me advocating for unions. I don't know. Pash, you spoke about how maybe you could be signing away your rights to the use of the music in a particular space, but you might want to retain your rights for performing, for example. Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of the different areas that people should be aware of that they might want to hold on to their rights? Like, even as a negotiation tactic of saying, well, I understand that I might have to completely give the rights to the studio for the piece of music as it appears in the game, but I want to retain the rights to do live performance or to release it as a soundtrack, things like that.
Yeah. Look, it really does depend on the type of work you're being offered, which will then informs the type of agreement you are being presented with. If you are a commercially releasing musician and someone has approached you to because they want your song in their game, that would largely be treated as a license agreement. That's a synchronization agreement. I spoke about sync earlier being the right to put music into an audio-visual production. That largely has a fee for the publishing rights, so the copyright, the music. But also it will enjoy a licensing fee for the master right as well. Whether or not you still retain both of the master right, if you're not signed to a label, you may do. You may have both of those things still in your possession. So that is one part of it. But when it comes to commissioning music for games, it's slightly different because they can be exclusive to the game itself. So therefore, often agreements can include more usage or overall usage that the dev wants to have cleared so that they can go forward with it and use it in the way they want. But I think it's very important to understand that if you are a musician, if you are a recording musician and you are having music being placed in games, there is an intrinsic value to your work beyond the placement in the game itself. And that can occur through licensing, through any games licensing agreements that the PROs around the world have managed to secure. And also, if it has a life outside of the game itself, like I said earlier, you can enjoy residual performing royalties from that as well. Full buyouts and any agreements that talk about full assignment of rights or assignment in general are generally, we do not really accept that as a equitable or a good thing for composers, because you never know what life that music may take going forward, 10, 20, 30 years time. You just don't know. And when you assign that copyright to someone who wants to use it and essentially give it to them for all uses in perpetuity, you are having to put a price on that without really
and they
knowing.
never pay you enough for that at the go.
Well, look, we allow our members to make their own commercial decisions, and like I say, there is flexibility within our agreement to exclude certain rights, so members can opt out of certain revenue streams so that they can do the direct licensing themselves.
More and more game soundtracks are being sold through Steam. Is APRA AMCOS able to collect royalties for writers and publishers on these sales?
I'll have to come back to you on Steam. I'm not fully across where licensing are with them, so yeah, I can take that away.
How do you actually track? I understand for traditional media how APRA is, tracking members' royalties and then paying them out. But what is the method for tracking it for games?
It's largely the same. We rely on the platform to send us reporting of their usage.
Is it sales data?
Yeah. And depending on the usage, streaming or sales data. Yeah.
I kind of want. So, licensing works platform to platform, is it? Each individual platform?
Generally, yes. It just depends on how the game is being accessed, basically, online.
I love how everything is, it depends. Which is one of the very tricky things about this whole topic, which is why it's very useful to have people like APRA, AMCOS to help you.
I think
Yes.
Yeah.
This is why these bodies exist.
Yeah.
I think to be able to make what's grey a little bit, put a little bit more color in it for people.
And also to advocate, like
100%.
all of these bodies essentially are advocating for members. They're not for profit. I mean, Dimitri mentioned that nobody at the Composers Guild is.
Some people are paid, but they're employees part-time usually.
Yeah. Nobody in the Australian Screen Sound Guild is paid. Like its sole purpose is to advocate for its members. So.
I think from our side, the challenges which exist are quite significant in this sector, because the games industry has been evolving from kind of offline to online to virtual, and it continues to take that pathway, and usage is so decentralized now. There are lots of different platforms that use copyright music in the way, and lots of different ways you can access games through those platforms. It really requires a kind of approach that is kind of agile, and all PROs around the world are facing these challenges where it comes to a very decentralized digital world where you have usage that is spread so vastly now. So I think that's kind of, we continue to try and, to the best endeavours, ensure that our members' copyright is protected and that there is remuneration for use in Australia and New Zealand.
It's whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Their own
To a
whack-a-mole.
degree.
Yeah. I wanted to chat about the ASSG Awards, which you mentioned earlier, and I've had the pleasure of being at. They're wonderful. They have an interactive or immersive entertainment category, and this year there are no video games nominated for it, as you mentioned, but in some ways, it's the perfect space for it. So I would like you to share with the group what the awards are about and what the Guild is about, and give your pitch as to why people should consider joining or taking a look.
With pleasure. Thank you very much. As I said, the Guild serves to advocate for its members, and our membership is practitioners who create sound for the screen. And it's worth pointing out that the differentiation really is practitioners for our industry don't do music. So if you're a composer, you need to have a chat to Dimitri. We represent sound designers, sound editors, dialogue editors, Foley performers, recordists, sounds as opposed to music.
Although you can be a member of both guilds.
Yes.
That's the thing as well. So.
And APRA as well.
There you go.
APRA.
Yeah, get amongst it.
Collect them all.
But in order to, I'd sort of touched on this earlier, in order to support members, we want to celebrate what members are doing, what work they've done, and recognise outstanding achievements. Unfortunately, at the moment, we don't really have the membership base from the game industry to be able to celebrate work that people in the game industry have done in the same way that we can recognise outstanding achievements in the sort of traditional mediums. But we want you guys to be a part of it, like you guys are making sound for the screen. It's different, but it's still sound for the screen. So we want you guys to reach out to us to become members of the Guild, to find support from like-minded peers and also have your achievements recognised as well. I mean, I have to say too, the awards you said yourself, you've been there. It's great fun to sort of go and hang out with a room full of sound nerds and eat and drink and be merry, and I mean, that alone is worth signing up for, I think, let alone all of the other stuff. The social events that are held throughout the year. We have Q&A sessions where people present their work, and then we have a panel similar to this where people can ask questions about how the works were made, and like what trials and tribulations were involved, and all that sort of jazz. We can help provide guidance when people get into difficulties. We're not a legal body. We can't give legal advice, but if somebody can, and I've taken these calls myself, somebody says, hey, I've been faced with this difficult situation and I just want some advice about how I should deal with it, we can help, we can be a collective sounding board to sort of help individuals navigate situations that they might be uncomfortable.
You're like the 6 big older brothers that you can hire to go knock on someone's door?
Yeah, kind of. Not go knock on somebody's door, but you can ask your older brother, hey, I've got no idea about this situation, whether it's about, the number of hours that you've been asked to work in a week and how much you're getting paid for them, or, and you can ask your older brother or sister, say, hey, what's reasonable or fair? Do you know somebody that I can go and talk to, to get some more definitive clarity about this? And we can help point people in the right direction with regards to these things.
A little bit of kind of informal mentorship service, which is so valuable. And isn't it nice to be wanted? The way he's like, we'd really like you to join. We want you there. Does that also mean that the bar is on the floor for that award? Is like, as soon as you enter, you're in? Or?
Well, I think technically speaking, there needs to be a certain number of entries in order for the award to be valid. So if only one submission gets made, you can't win because there's no competition. I think the number of entries is 4 or 5. There's a very small fee for entering a work. I think it's something in the vicinity of $50. It's not going to break the bank. But if 10 or 15 different people or bodies submit 10 or 15 different bodies of work, all of a sudden you've got something really interesting. You've got an interesting way to sort of showcase and compare. And I have to say, for me, that's one of the most interesting things, because the awards are judged by members, so all members are invited to judge each other's work. It's all internal. There's no external body that's judging the work, and so you can put your hand up to judge work and listen to what other people have been doing. And it's such a fascinating way to sort of keep abreast of what your peers are doing. To hear what they're doing. To be inspired by what your peers are doing. For me, this is one of the most invaluable parts of the year's program for the ASSG, is just to put your hand up for judging and just listen and enjoy and compare.
And also, as evidenced by the fact that it's a new category, isn't it? This interactive one. Yeah. As evidenced by that fact, the awards can change, categories can change. So if there's enough submissions that they feel they need to expand, that will probably happen.
It very likely will, yes.
Let's go take over the guilds.
Come.
It's not their guild anymore. What is the AGSC doing in the games space? What kind of dealings have you had with the games industry thus far, and where would you like to grow it beyond that rate survey?
So at the moment, we are focusing on this rate survey. The future is there's many different things we want to do, but at the moment we're doing it one step at a time. We've done things like webinars. We've Of course, the Guild does many different events, lobbies government, and we work with APRA on several different things. But in terms of games, we are just starting out with this survey first so that we can eventually get to a place where we can be a little bit more involved, maybe with events like High Score a little bit more and other things. But right now, yes, that's kind of our main focus. We did, of course, create this, well, we didn't, but APRA created the video game category for the Screen Music Awards, which is huge. And we helped advise on that.
In its second year now, so yeah,
right.
really exciting.
Yep. And there's people, I'm not sure if in this room that are nominated, maybe. There's some people walking around High Score that are nominated this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pash, how do royalties/splits work for cover songs?
Cover songs, right. Straight covers, the copyright is still retained by the original writers.
There you go. Yeah. Was there further on that question?
And publishers.
There you go. And when you register your video soundtrack with AMCOS, not the streaming of the video game soundtrack, where do the royalties come from? Is it the game sales?
Okay, so just on registration for games, depending on the type of registration, I can just advise quickly on how to register your works. Would that be useful for anyone in the room who's an APRA member who would like to know how to register their works that are being placed in video games? Yeah.
Couple vigorous nods.
There's a few hands up. Okay, so for commissioned music, if it's an overarching game registration for the whole game where you've worked on the game, perhaps a couple of you or several of you have worked on the game and you're agreeing equal splits for the whole of that music, you can register just one work and give the title as the game title and then use a suffix of VG in brackets afterwards when you register the work via your writer portal. So
VG for very good.
Always. Yeah, so step back a little bit. When you become a fully elected APRA member, you have access to the writer portal, which is an online service via our website. And that is your place for where to manage your repertoire, your songs, your compositions. And within that, there is an online works registration form, which that's where you register your work. So that's where we suggest, and that's how we suggest you register a work that is a commissioned work for a game. For soundtrack, which is I think what you asked just then, was that right?
Yes.
Okay, so it may be that you want to self-release, or there may be a release of the soundtrack for the music that's in the game. It may be the same as the commissioned music. It's okay to register those works individually as the track titles that are in the game itself, or as
the just registering them separately, that you have the video game cue sheets,
yes,
and then the soundtrack album is a separate
That's
work.
what I'm saying, yeah. So basically, those works will be individual works if they're broken down into tracks. In order to help matching with processing, we suggest that you use an alternate title of the game title when you register those individual tracks with VG and the suffix in brackets afterwards. Synced works, so if you have a pre-existing song, you should have a pre-existing registration as an APRA member. And if it's already there, you can add an alt title to that work using the game title itself, if that work is being placed into a game or an AV. Yeah.
What happens if you've registered your work and then you realize that you have done it in the messiest way possible and now you want to change it so that you can, for example, split it up into proper different titles? Are you screwed?
No.
Okay, good.
You can. There is a certain level of editing you can do within the writer portal of your own repertoire, but you can always get in touch with writer@apra.com.au, and one of the lovely writer services team will help you with your registrations and get it all cleaned up for you.
Yeah. You can send emails that say, "Attention Pash, I've messed up." The majority of contracts have NDAs attached. How do you gather data for a rate sheet when confidentiality on details of the contract and projects are required?
Sorry, say that again?
The majority of contracts have
Yes.
NDAs attached. How do you gather data for a rate sheet when confidentiality on details of the contract and projects are required?
Well, first of all, if you're very worried about it, then don't fill out the survey. But the survey can be done anonymously, of course. So you can rest assured that no one's going to know who you are unless it's some very specific thing that I would assume no one's going to realize what game it is when you fill it out, because how would anyone know? I don't know.
Yeah, most of our surveys are anonymous when we want to glean data from our membership on their usage and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I assume in the survey you're not needing to put in any of those kinds of specifics. It's basically like, what was the budget of this project? And
So our survey is divided into budget tiers, which the games industry in Australia is very focused around indies. And so we've broken it down into 4 indie categories with 1 AAA category, but chances of us getting a lot of AAA composers in the survey are probably very small. So you don't have to be specific about the budget. It's just a range. And also most composers are not going to know what the budget of the game is. We're just asking them to guess, which can, again, how long is a piece of string? We'll see what people say. And with this data also, I just want to stress that this is the starting point of this conversation between the AGSC and games composers. This is not the end of this. We can also do follow-up surveys in the future. We can do all sorts of things to make the data even clearer. Yeah.
I was just going to say that APRA did do a survey of its membership in 2024 to gain as much information about where our members' music is being placed in games to help inform our digital licensing team when it comes to their endeavours, when they are in active discussions with the games enterprises, platforms, and the big kind of users that are using music within games on their platforms.
One thing has come through in Slido that just says it's worth pointing out that APRA membership is free, and that is worth pointing out. And now I've done that.
Thank you. It is.
It is worth pointing out. Yeah, I remember when I was very young and playing gigs and stuff, playing music, it blew my mind that you can just like sign up and then you get like $4 at the end of the year for all the shows that you played. I wasn't like a regularly gigging musician or anything, but still, to someone who's just, like having fun with it, you're like, oh, free money. Very, very cool stuff. I want to talk more about the future of the industry in terms of the fact that the games industry is often still seen as being very young in a lot of ways. And in comparison to maybe music and film and TV, it is. But at the same time, it's not. Games have been around for a very, very long time. What do you think the barriers are to the industry kind of growing up in some of these business regards? Why is it that we still don't have the membership and the representation in things like these guilds?
That's a question for the audience, isn't it?
Why?
I think traditionally the games industry has sat a little bit separate. Well, I can only speak to the music industry, but I think it's traditionally sat quite separate to the music industry for many reasons. But I think there is lots of parallels there. I think there's no reason why we can't come together more and cooperate more and both benefit from the games industry that is such a huge industry worldwide now. I think it's partly traditional, actually, is my answer.
Well, I guess I think I have a follow-up question on that, in that I think games has often felt like this really experimental space of people that are doing it, for the love of it. They're doing it because they're passionate and they're interested. And that very much can be said of these other industries as well. But I think that it's kind of grown up in a space where there hasn't always been a massive necessity to then plug into these more traditional figureheads, right? Like, I think often in film industry, maybe you start off making student films or short films for yourself, but then eventually you start to go on and work for a big studio. Whereas with games, there's a lot more people making their own games, making their own studios, and sort of going from there. Is that how you see it? Is it just that, you know, there's never been the cross-pollination, or do you think culturally it's...
I mean, just from my perspective, personally, I see games as a highly creative but highly collaborative endeavor. You know, you look at AAA studios and the amount of people involved and the amount of different departments involved in producing that work as a whole overall. You know, music is an integral part of it, but it is just one part of it as well. You know, it's a very, very interesting dynamic space where music does play an integral role, but it is also part of this big, much bigger engine, if you'll pardon the pun.
Also, I feel that the games industry, you know, it comes from like originally from the tech sector, you know, so there is a kind of different. It is a very creative industry, and I think it's become more and more similar in a lot of ways to film and TV, but it still has those roots. And in terms of hierarchies, structure, and how people, you know, employ composers and sound designers, it is slightly different, but yeah, I think that could also have something to do with it. Maybe, I'm not sure.
I'd like to speak to the future as well, and you know, I think actually people working in the game audio industry compared to the traditional mediums are actually at an advantage at this point in time. The traditional mediums, you know, from my point of view, film and television, the production model that we've been so familiar with is breaking apart at the moment, and our industry for traditional practitioners is becoming quite difficult because we're making this transition to interactive, you know, on your telephone through the glasses, you know, and the traditional model for making content isn't working for that. And that's where you guys in the game industry, who are already plugged into the tech side of thing that you've already sort of touched on, I think you guys have the upper hand here, because you're not confined necessarily, because it's young and separate and not bound by this sort of traditional production model that's been around for, you know, 50, 60 years. You know, I feel more positive about your potential futures than my future. Does anybody need a sound designer?
Yeah, I would second that to a degree. Games industry has suffered quite a lot during the last couple of years, but I do think that it's more malleable at the moment. So I think anybody could make a game, you know, and with, you know, the rise of certain tools, then, you know, surely anybody can make a short film, but you know, it's a lot harder to make a TV series than it is to make a successful game, I think.
And if I can ask this question in a highly provocative way, if the games industry is the one that's forging ahead, malleable, it's the future, it is the one that understands the challenges that the world is throwing and overcoming them, why would it be beneficial to people in the games industry to attach themselves to, again, intentionally saying this in a very provocative way, why would it be beneficial for them to attach themselves to a dying breed? I'm joking. Why is it beneficial?
Which breed are we talking about?
Why is it beneficial for people in the games industry to come and join these, you know, different guilds, these different bodies? What can they learn, and what can they get out of it?
Well, I think, as we've said before, it's about propping each other up and helping each other. At the end of the day, this is about building community, and you know, our members are there we're here to help our members, basically. And, I'm a member as well as, being part of the guild as a volunteer. I'm also a member that I'm here to talk to anybody about anything, whatever contract disputes they might have or particular questions they might have. And I think having that sense of community is very important for making it stronger for everyone.
And our industries, like the way we consume content, it's changing and it's evolving, and our industries have to change and evolve as well. So I guess that's why we want to change. We want to move with the times. We want to keep our horizons broad. And I think you, to summarise it as building a community is, I mean, that's beautiful. That's all that needs to be said. Building a community to support one another in this evolving space of content creation.
And if I can also answer my own question, because I love doing that, I would say that modernity built on itself falls over. At the same time, you need roots. Even though the world is changing, things change much slower than we often think that they do. And these traditional roots and institutions and ways of things being done are not going to go away overnight. Often they are avenues for making revenue. So understanding that and being plugged into that is useful as well.
Yes, I think from our side, just quickly, along with all the advocacy and support that we provide for our members within the industry itself, and that includes games. We do have initiatives for games. We hosted a mixer recently. We partnered with IGEA in Sydney to host a mixer where our composer members could come together with developers in Sydney. And there are a range of other initiatives that we do. In addition to that, I think APRA AMCOS is providing a core function that is really important. We manage your rights on your behalf so that when your music is used commercially, you get paid. Basically, we endeavour to license usage so that we can pay royalties to our members. And like I say, our digital licensing team are in active discussions continually with the major games platforms. Any new developments on that front, we will be more than happy to update our members on the website and in any kind of press release to the wider industry.
Well, thank you very much for sharing with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We are now going to have a very quick break, 15-minute break. We'll be back here at 3:45 for the last session of the day. So we'll see you then.